Hello, everyone. Welcome to Home with Jess Nilson. Today, we're chatting with Ona Hughes, mortgage specialist with CorTrust Bank. Thanks for being here, Ona.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So before we get started, can you tell us a little about yourself? Like, where'd you go to school? Do you have any kids or pets? What's on your Netflix?
I grew up in Lemoore, North Dakota. That's where I graduated from high school. Moved to Aberdeen in 2007. And I have two kids, both grown and out of the house, 21 and 19, both in college right now. Mm-hmm. So great accomplishments.
Nice.
Yeah. And for my Netflix, so I share it with my kids. So we have a variety of things all over my Netflix. So
fun.
A lot of murder mysteries.
Murder mystery. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you watch Schitt's Creek? I know it's not on there anymore.
I do, yeah. It's on Hulu now, I think.
Yes. Yeah. That one's hilarious.
I just got done watching The Watcher.
Oh,
it's kind of about real estate.
Interesting. No, I don't know. I'm going to make a note of that one, The Watcher. Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you for telling us a little about you. We like to know those details. So if you don't mind, we're going to look at a couple pictures here, and then we're going to just talk about, will this qualify? And so the first one we're going to look at is a barndominium. So what do you think of this one? Yes.
Well, I would have to look at the inside because how big is the shop compared to the house?
Interesting. I don't know. Is that a factor?
It is. Generally, the house needs to be bigger than the shop for it to qualify for the secondary market.
This one looks like a lot of shop, doesn't it? Three big doors, a lot of shop there. It kind of looks like a pole building. I don't know if that's the technical term. Does that factor in?
It does. And sometimes they want these houses or barndominiums to look more like a house than a
barn or a shop.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's interesting. Well, let's check out another one here. So this is kind of the same concept, but a little more glam, right? They gave it a little more pizzazz, but it is still a pole building.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It is, right? What do you think of this one?
I love it.
I'll take it. Sold.
I'll move in today.
Yes. No, really, it's pretty.
No, that would pass.
That would pass because it looks like a house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not as much.
And you can tell that the house is bigger than the shop area.
Yeah, you definitely can. Yep. Let's see. So this is more of a traditional barn face, but inside it's a full home.
Yeah. I don't know. That would be a tough one.
Yeah.
Because you don't get to see the full.
Right. I'm putting you on the spot. This isn't a ton of information, but it's for fun more than anything, just to see.
Yeah. I wouldn't think there would be issues with that because it does look like a traditional house from the inside, but the outside just has a different look to it.
Yeah, it's just not that maybe cookie cutter home that we're used to seeing. So all right. How about if we go into tiny homes? So this one you can see there are two hills, but let's pretend that's a foundation for the sake of this one. So this tiny house is on a foundation.
So I think the biggest problem with tiny homes is comparables.
Yes, we have one, I think, in Aberdeen.
Yeah. Yep. And if we don't have the comparables, we can't get an appraised value on it.
Interesting. So appraisal is maybe outside of both of our scope a little bit, but when an appraiser looks at it, is it about square footage or like fixtures, or it's about comps?
Yeah, comps, and trying to get the comp that's most comparable, like in square footage and stuff, to that house. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
So tiny homes, they are. I don't know. I think they're cool.
I do too.
So this one is another tiny home, but she's on wheels.
Yeah, so that one we would not be able to finance it because it's on wheels.
Right. And so
it has to be on permanent a fixture.
Foundation, right? Yeah, it needs land attached to it. So, and I'm not 100% sure, I'm not a lender, but I think it's something about the wheels, right? You can pull this baby away if you want to. Yep. So those are kind of fun. The last one here, what do you think of this guy?
Wow, that's different.
Yeah, so this is maybe an earth house, or you might call it something like that. I know there's one out at Mina that's kind of similar. What do you think?
I don't know. Honestly, I've never ran into something like this. I've never seen anything like this. This is my first time. So
it's kind of built into the hill almost. Like you can see that there's an entrance, but then there's all this grass and land sort of.
I'm wondering if it would be okay as long as we could find the comparables based on square footage.
And again, comps are probably appraiser business, but how far out could we go to look for a comp? If we're in Aberdeen, can we go,
You can't go out of state.
You got to be in the state.
Yeah,
Okay.
within, the general area.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be able to go to Sioux Falls.
Right, because their market is different than ours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, see, well, that was fun, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
well,
was.
thank you for playing along with that. So that is just some different examples of homes that can be tricky to finance, honestly. That's really what it comes down to. So if someone did want to buy like the barndominium, what would they need to do? What, just like a couple things that you have to have, like the garage in the house or...
Yeah, so if they came in, I would ask them, like, is there more living space versus shop? And we do have an in-house mortgage banker too. So if we can't get this onto the secondary market, we could always look at doing something in-house with them as well.
Yes. And so in-house is one of the beautiful things about having more of a local bank. I personally think you guys can sometimes do things that others maybe can't. So, yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you. So if we were going to talk to someone who's looking to buy a house and they haven't started yet, how do they start building credit?
So I always tell people, like, probably one of the fastest and easiest ways to build credit is to ask a parent to add them on their credit card as an authorized user. If their parents are in good standing with that credit card, they're at 30% usage, they always make the payment, and they've got good credit, usually that will transfer over to the kids as well.
Well, that's interesting. And is there like an age cutoff? Could I get on my dad's credit? I'm 40.
Yep. Yeah.
Just putting it out there, people. It's fine. No, really, though. Is that similar to a co-borrower then or something? Not borrower, maybe, but...
Really?
Interesting.
So if your dad adds you as an authorized user, and if you use that credit card, he pays the bill on it.
Yes, and then his credit jumps onto my credit somehow. Huh.
Yep.
Credit it's an interesting thing.
It is. Or a lot of times I'll tell them to get a credit card and use it, but don't charge more than half on it. Try to stay at that 30% usage. Like charge a tank of gas or, groceries, and then let that statement cycle and then pay it off next month.
And so, again, I know this is all technical and you would want to come in and sit down with Ona to get through all of this stuff for yourself. But if they are using a credit card, like you're saying, do you pay the balance in full every month then?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. And don't close it. If you pay it off, don't close it because that'll hurt your credit too.
Because you want to have a long standing, right?
Yep.
So that's some good information for people if they want to start building their credit, talk to a parent or get maybe a bank credit card or something like that.
And never max out the card because that'll hurt your credit too.
All right. That's good to know. Definitely. If someone were wondering what is the difference between pre-approval and pre-qualification, what would you say to them?
Pre-approval is when we take you through the full underwrite. So underwriting has looked at your income and verified your income, and we've gone through all of that. Pre-qualification is when you come in to me and I look at what you have and I just go off of that. We don't verify income. And then I just give you that letter and you go out and look.
Interesting. So when I come in and I sit down with you for the first time, would you typically do pre-qual or pre-approval?
Pre-qual.
Yep. And what triggers the pre-approval process?
Tax returns, pay stubs. I would need all that income documentation.
Right. So income documentation. And when we talk about that, what are a handful of things that people would want to gather up before they came to see you?
2 months pay stubs, 2 years of tax returns with the W-2s, bank statements. Those are things that we are eventually going to collect anyways.
Yes.
So it's just nice to have all that stuff together.
I feel like in my experience, it gives you a better understanding of what people are actually working with when they can bring you some of that stuff. Sometimes people just don't really know or they don't pay attention to their pay stubs or whatever it is. So having those documents is probably a stronger way to get going. Yeah. So another thing that I'm going to touch on just a little bit is interest rates, and we're not going to go into those too much. We know they're rising, and that's just the world we live in. But something that people might not know as much about is an assumable mortgage, and it's my understanding that this is where you can assume the mortgage from the holder at their current rate.
Correct.
So can you tell me, is that something CorTrust does? What do you know about it?
It is something that CorTrust does, but we only do it for VA loans, and it has to be a qualified veteran, and it has to be their primary house in order for them to assume the loan.
All right.
I know other banks do it, like say a divorce, and the one spouse wants to keep the house because, family, kids, and they just like that house. So they will, and if it's got a good interest rate, they will come in and ask if they can assume that mortgage, but they still have to meet credit qualifications and income qualifications too.
So they would still have to qualify, just like anybody else, basically.
Correct. Yep.
But they could save themselves a little bit on interest that way.
Yep.
And I guess my thinking is if you look at maybe the United States as an aggregate and how many mortgages we're holding right now in those lower 2 and 3%, can we all save a little money this way, or does it have to be a relative or a close person? Like, what's the actual process?
No, anybody can assume, I could assume your mortgage, but I just have to meet those credit qualifications.
You just have to qualify.
Yep. Huh. Yeah. And it's basically the same thing as going through the mortgage process as you were refinancing or buying.
So you're still going to go through all the steps and bring in those tax returns, but there may be some savings there.
Yep.
So if you're savvy, maybe you can look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're
That's
welcome.
definitely technical stuff. So is there anything that you want to share with us today? Anything you're doing in the community or got going on at CorTrust?
Nothing that I can think of right now off the top of my head.
I heard, and I know obviously a lot of people probably do that, Northern Nights is coming up. Can you tell me a little about Northern Nights?
Yes, it's an event that Northern State University puts on. It's one of their biggest fundraisers. Nice. It's on November 11th.
Okay.
And that Northern Nights helps, with the money they make off of that night, it helps for scholarships for kids.
That is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It really is.
And it's a fun night. You get dressed up and a nice dinner. And
do you know where are they having it? Did you say that? Sorry.
At the Deck.
At the Deck this year. So that'll be a fun night. It's usually a pretty big, gala, fancy event.
Yes, it is.
Do you have a dress picked out?
I do.
Ooh, we should have brought that with.
Yeah.
Well, that's really fun stuff. So thank you again for sharing a little with us.
You're welcome.
So the final thing I'm going to ask is just, if people are looking to get a mortgage, how can they get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with me is to call my cell phone at 605-380-7782.
All right, Ona, thank you so much for chatting with us today on Home with Jess Nilson.
Thank you.